most likely I'm going to get in trouble for this. But as an Eastern European who grew up in a post-communist third world country, I find the Western, often American, woke individuals almost fascinating. Since I started getting recognition for my work, I also became a white man. And as a straight white man, I found out that I am the enemy. And it's now acceptable to be treated differently and to be accused of things and to be insulted without anyone having to deal with any consequences of that, to almost be celebrated for it. Because I guess that's what progress looks like. And what makes it even more funny, besides the fact that being called an oppressor, coming from a country that's been conquered by everyone for like 2,000 years and has been poor for the longest time, is that I lived in the United States. And how I got there is that I was human trafficked into Alabama, where I was put to work into a cotton gin, which is a cotton manufacturing facility. I would work there for 96 hours a week during the grueling summer of the South. And yes, we don't have to pick the cotton manually from the fields anymore, but those jobs are still dangerous and undesirable enough that they have to import people with nothing to lose from all over the world and take their paperwork away and send them at gunpoint to work 7 days a week, over 12 hours a day. And I almost lost my life a few times during those months. And I had a colleague of mine of a darker complexion just die in front of me. And we had to move on and carry on working because the social justice warriors were too busy saving the world and they needed organic, locally grown cotton. So let's talk about this whole woke thing. Because a lot of people are thinking it and a lot of people are only talking about it behind closed doors because they're scared to lose their jobs or to get cancelled. But luckily, I'm always ready to enter Valhalla and especially happy to do so dealing with a bully, because that's what you are. You're just a bunch of bullies that now you have a bit of power and influence because good people just try to do the right thing and left you alone for long enough, and then corporations and political interests have empowered and weaponized you to distract us and to divide and censor and just make everything harder. Because the reality is, you want to say that you're doing it for the right causes, but let's look at the outcomes. It causes way more damage than helping people. And most of it is just a cult of hatred and self-destruction. And a lot of that hatred is inner hatred that you're just projecting outwards. Because most of the woke individual is someone that comes from privilege. And because of that privilege, it comes with pressure and expectations. And because they do nothing with their lives, because that's the common thing. If you want to find a woke person, just ask them, what do you do? What's your purpose? What skills have you mastered? What achievements do you have? And you realize that they have nothing outside of activism, because it's just a way for them to look for oppression to justify doing nothing with the privilege they have, or to project their inner hatred outwards because they're allergic to accountability. Because as any cult usually attracts people with a high level of narcissism and high level of neuroticism and lack of self-esteem. So it's very similar to this. And it's not a cult. Yeah, and no one in a cult are going to say they're in a cult until it's too late, because if you're there because of sunk cost fallacy, you always will try to defend it and rationalize it, because if you accept you were wrong all along, that's a big boost to already very fragile ego. So you're going to stick to it, and sometimes to disastrous consequences, which we're already seeing in a lot of cases. The thing is that most of the individuals that fall victim for this mindset and brainwashing actually think that they're good guys because they have good intentions. But I'm sure during the Nazi times, there were individuals that thought they were the good guys doing the right thing. That's why it's important to take a step back and look at the actions being taken and the outcomes that result. And you'll see that a lot of the actions are very hateful, because if you discriminate or insult or attack someone based on their skin color, it's racism, even if that person's white. I know it's acceptable now, but it was acceptable 200 years ago to own and discriminate people over darker complexion. And just because it was legal and acceptable doesn't make it morally right. So you want to make sure that you're on the right side of history as the next thing will happen. And we also need to look at the outcomes, and the outcomes are quite destructive. The quality of life of individuals has only decreased. The divisiveness and the stress and the ruining of relationships and the censorship and the attack on truth, because now feelings became facts, are ruining people's opportunity for relationships and mental health, and they only get to be impoverished by this divide and this constant conflict, while the only benefit that we're seeing is that corporate profits are all-time high, and the control and power that governments and these corporations have are all-time high. So is it worth being one of these corporate puppets that's destroying society just to give yourself a bit of sense of importance and just to have an acceptable funnel for your hatred because you don't want to deal with that inner hatred? If you really want to be one of the good guys, wouldn't it be better and more efficient to use your privilege and your intellect and access to information to better yourself and make sure that you are stable? Because a lot of people are not doing good at being very unstable, and somehow have the audacity of telling others how they should do things. First, be the living proof of your values and your knowledge, proof of concept. And then you can go to your local communities and serve them. Use your time and resources to improve the lives of others. Don't just type random things online and attack random hairy guys. I guess you can do it, but is that the best way to move things forward? Because often you're just damaging yourself even further and damaging society even further. And for what? I don't know. Just something to consider. Protect your peace.